Welcome to This Explainer. You know, it's really easy to look at monumental success and just assume, right, that there was this flawless master plan from day one. But today, we're doing something a little different. We are looking at a year that completely shatters that myth of inevitable success. We're digging into the absolute, unfiltered chaos of 2008. And we're not doing this as some sort of victory lap, no. We want to examine what actually happens when literally every absolute worst-case scenario you can imagine converges at exactly the same time. Okay, let's dive into this. Imagine this scenario for a second. You are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. You're overseeing these incredibly ambitious companies. And yet, day by day, your bank account is just draining. And the truly terrifying part here wasn't just a bad investment or a broader market crash. It was the fact that every single company you'd built was fundamentally breaking down, all at the exact same time. By the end of 2008, Elon Musk was quite literally weeks away from total financial ruin. To really wrap our heads around the sheer cliff he was standing on, we've got to rewind a bit to 2002. eBay acquires PayPal, and Musk walks away with roughly $180 million. Now, put yourself in those shoes for a minute. For most of us, that's buy a private island, get a fleet of vintage cars, and log off forever money, right? You'd be set for life.
But, well, instead of hitting the beaches, he targets two massive existential problems: fossil fuel dependence and, making us a multiplanetary species. He actually takes that $180 million and dumps almost the entire thing into two incredibly risky startups, Tesla and SpaceX. Industry experts completely laughed. The media just dismissed it outright as a billionaire's folly. But he was literally betting the house on the future.
And this brilliantly illustrates what was happening. Let's start inside Tesla. From the outside, it looked really promising. But inside, it was a financial black hole. The Roadster was supposed to completely revolutionize the market, but that target cost of $90,000, yeah, that turned out to be a total fantasy. Actually, scratch that, it was a nightmare. Parts were horribly delayed, the engineering was wildly complex, and the actual production costs just exploded. For a while there, every single vehicle they sold was actively draining the company's lifeblood. And then, as if things weren't bad enough, the outside world turned completely hostile. Just as Tesla desperately needed a financial lifeline, bam, the 2008 global financial crisis hits. Capital just completely dried up overnight, especially for, risky, unproven startups. Investors definitely weren't writing blank checks for experimental electric car companies right in the middle of a historic recession. Because of this, Tesla's survival window basically shrank from years down to mere weeks. But here's the crazy part. Tesla was only half the nightmare. Over at SpaceX, the dream of cheap space travel with the Falcon 1 rocket was, well, it was literally going up in flames. Year 1, the rocket explodes. Year 2, absolute disaster. Year 3, yep, another explosion. 3 launches, 3 total losses. We're talking millions of dollars just vaporized in midair. All while the critics were sitting back, smugly declaring that private spaceflight was just flat out impossible. So after 3 consecutive failures, SpaceX had the resources for exactly one more launch. Just one. If launch 4 fails, the company is dead. So as late 2008, Tesla needs emergency funding today, and SpaceX needs a miracle tomorrow. Musk is virtually out of capital at this point, and he's faced with this truly agonizing decision. Does he split his remaining scraps between Tesla and SpaceX, knowing full well there isn't enough cash to save both? It's basically the business equivalent of having to choose which of your children gets saved. To really grasp just how far the mighty had fallen here, the guy who walked away with $180 million just 6 years prior was now reportedly borrowing money from friends just to cover his own rent. Let that sink in. It's almost absurd, isn't it? Hundreds of millions of dollars entirely gone, his personal life incredibly strained, and his 2 visionary companies are staring directly into the abyss. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it brings us to the ultimate turning point. September 28, 2008, Falcon 1, launch number 4. Inside that control room, the tension is just suffocating. Everyone in that room knows the stakes. Failure means the doors close forever, and the whole private spaceflight dream just dies right there on the launch pad. The countdown finishes, and it lifts off. And this time, it actually works. After years of just totally heartbreaking setbacks, the rocket achieves orbit. The very first privately developed liquid-fueled rocket in history does the impossible. The emotional release in that room must have been absolutely massive. They finally proved the tech worked, and just a few months later, that exact proof secured them a massive billion-dollar contract from NASA. Just like that, SpaceX was pulled right back from the brink. Okay, but remember, Tesla was still suffocating. Musk is scrambling tirelessly at this point, just pitching investors for one last lifeline.
And guys, it goes down to the absolute wire. Finally, investors agree to an emergency round of funding just to keep the lights on. The ink dried on Christmas Eve 2008, reportedly just mere hours before Tesla would have bounced payroll and gone completely bankrupt. So that's the second miracle, secured. Today, obviously, Tesla is an absolute automotive titan, and SpaceX routinely commutes to orbit like it's nothing. So the crucial point is that we cannot let hindsight trick us into thinking this was somehow inevitable, because there was zero guarantee, none. In 2008, one more exploded valve, one missed phone call, or just one bad pitch, and both of these massive companies are nothing more than a footnote in a textbook of failed tech ideas.
So, the next time you see a rocket literally land itself backwards, or an EV silently pass you on the highway, remember this: they didn't survive because failure wasn't possible. They survived because when failure was basically a mathematical certainty, they just kept going. And it leaves us with one really powerful question to think about. How drastically does the future change simply because someone flat out refuses to quit?